إن الحمد لله وحده الصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وبعد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.
Now we will see the technical definition of al-bir. As I said, bir is the root word of al-bar. Hafiz Ibn Hajar al-Haythami rahimahullah. One is Hafiz Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah. But this is another scholar having the same name Ibn Hajar. But first one is al-Asqalani and this one is al-Haythami. Haythami and also Haythami. Ibn Hajar al-Haythami rahimahullah, he says linguistically al-bar is a unique word that entails all acts of righteousness and good conduct. The source of all good conduct and source of all acts of righteousness is referred to al-bir. And if we see this linguistic meaning in al-bar, it is in its beautiful form found in al-bar, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entails all acts of righteousness. As He is a source of good, He is a source of righteousness, He is a source of good conduct. Then Imam Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, he also defines al-bir. He says al-bir is the source of all righteousness, the one from whom every good deed comes into being. Al-bir is the one who does not stop his ihsan because of the sins and disobedience of his slaves. The normal case in dunya is that if anybody is doing wrong to us, we may forgive him once, we may forgive him twice, we may forgive him thrice, or maybe 4, 5, 6 times we may forgive him. But that person who forgives fourth or fifth time must be a person of high standard, a person of high conduct. But usually if a person is doing any wrong to us once or twice, we distance ourselves from him. We don't forgive him. But al-bir is the one that he never considers the sins and disobedience of his servants. Rather, he keep on showering his bounties and blessings upon them. That's what Imam Al-Qurtubi says, rahimahullah. Al-bir is the one who does not stop his ihsan. Ihsan means, ihsan linguistically means doing good to others. Technically, it has another definition, which is mentioned in the Hadith Jibreel alayhi salam. When Jibreel alayhi salam asked the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam regarding the ihsan, what is ihsan? Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam defined the ihsan: أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. That you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a way that you, as if you see Allah. But if you are not in such a position, at least you must be under this impression that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching over you. فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. If you cannot see Him, at least you must be under this impression that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching over you. That is ihsan, technical definition of ihsan. But here ihsan is in its linguistic meaning, which means doing good to others. So Imam Al-Qurtubi says rahimahullah, al-bir is the one who does not stop his ihsan because of the sins and disobedience of his slaves. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers our sins, our disobedience to Him, then He will destroy us all, and we deserve to be destroyed. We deserve to be horribly punished. But it is al-bir, the source of good. The source of all good is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why He still gives respite to us. He still delays His punishment. He still gives us time so that we return back to Him. And Imam Al-Razi, Fakhruddin Al-Razi rahimahullah, one of the famous Imam of the Ummah, Sheikh and Imam of the Ummah, Imam Fakhruddin Al-Razi, his tafsir is Mafatihul Ghaib, which is also known as At-Tafsir Al-Kabir, in 30 huge volumes. He defines al-bir. Imam Al-Razi says rahimahullah, he is the one who is kind to the wrongdoers pardons transgression, forgives the sinner, turns to the one who repents to him, accepts the plea of those who ask him. He has turned to his slaves with praiseworthy actions and good expectations, while he is the most deserving of them. This is a beautiful definition of al-bir given by Imam al-Razi rahimahullah. The one who is kind to the wrongdoers. As I said before, if anybody is doing wrong to us once, twice, then we distance ourselves from him. We won't forgive him, his transgression, his wrongdoings. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-bar, that he forgives. He is always ready to forgive the sins of his slaves. Pardons transgression. Whatever be the level of this transgression, whatever be the level of injustice a person has done in his life, against himself, against others, if he sincerely repents to Allah and sincerely returns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he forgives the sinner. And we, after bar is at-tawwab, we discuss there the nature of tawwab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then accepts the plea of those who ask him. Al-bir is the one who listens. So al-bir also entails the meaning of al-mujib. Al-barru also entails the meaning of al-mujib. Al-mujib means the one who accepts the supplications of his servants. And he has turned to his slaves with praiseworthy actions and good expectations, while he is the most deserving of them. This is what Imam al-Razi rahimahullah defines. This is how he defines the al-bir and al-bar. That is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself says, indeed, we used to supplicate him before. Indeed, it is he who is the beneficent, the merciful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-bar. And another linguistic meaning of al-bar is, al-bir is al-makan al-muttasi'. The ulama of Arabic language, they describe al-bir as al-birru yutlaqu fi al-lughat al-arabiyya ala al-makan al-muttasi' alladhi la takadu tura hududuhu بسبب اتسائه فهو لغويا يأتي بمعنى المتسع أو الزيادة في الشيء الحسن الطيب بدون حدود ولا نهاية, which means that the word al-bir is applied to a place which is quite vast and spacious. لا تكاد ترى حدوده. It is not possible to see its endpoints. بسبب اتسائه, because of its vastness, because of its spaciousness. So linguistically, al-bir is referred to a place which is quite vast and spacious, and which is beautiful, and there is no limit to it. And al-bir huwa kathratul ihsan. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly showers his mercy upon his servants, that is known as al-bir, al-bar. Huwa kathirul ihsan. So al-bar is the one who is doing a lot of ihsan, a lot of good, a lot of righteousness to his servants. Wasi'ul khair, ample in goodness. Wa kasirul ihsani wa rahmah, and who is excessively showering his mercy and his forgiveness upon his servants. So this is the linguistic meaning of al-bir, which is limitless mercy of Allah, limitless forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unlimited compassion, unlimited, limitless magnanimity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When all these things are put together, what emerges is al-bar. That is the meaning of al-bar, linguistic meaning of al-bar. And this al-bar, that is the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the human nature has been, one of the hadiths connects the human nature with al-bar and al-bir. There's a beautiful hadith on the authority of Sayyidina Nawas ibn Sim'an radiyallahu anhu, called سألت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن البر والإثم. I asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about bir, the righteousness. Wal ith, opposite to bir is al ithmu. Bir is righteousness, and ithm is evil. Any sort of bad deed is known as al ithmu, or disobedience. So Sayyidina Nawas ibn Sim'an al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu قال سألت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن البر والإثم فقال البر حسن الخلق والإثم ما حاك في صدرك وكرهت أن يطلع عليه الناس. Sayyidina Sim'an, Nawas ibn Sim'an says radiyallahu anhu, I asked Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam regarding righteousness and sin. Then Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, al-birru husnul khulq, righteousness is good behavior. Wal ithmu ma haka fi sadrik, and the sin is what fluctuates in your chest, in your heart, what brings discomfort to your heart. Ma haka fi sadrik, the sin is everything that brings discomfort to your heart. Wa karihta an yattali alayhi an-nas, and you would hate that the people discover it about you. You don't wish that the people know about this. That is the concept of ithm. So here we can realize that any inclination towards the good or any good deed or good behavior of a person is referred to as al-birr. Actually, if we see the crux and the gist of our survival is to show this birr on our part to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on his part he will show to be as al-barr. Once we practice al-birr, that's righteousness, then he is al-barr, the root and the source of all righteousness. We turn to Allah with al-birr. So all forms of good deeds, whatever good deed there is approved by Quran and Sunnah, by the Sharia, that qualifies to be al-birr. Imam Shahabuddin Alusi rahimahullah, he also mentions that al-birru ismun jami'un. The term birr is a comprehensive term which is applied to all good. Whatever goodness there is, we call it as al-birr. So simply we can say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, I did not create the jinns and the humans except to worship me alone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for his worship. So it means that in all walks of life we have to show al-birr, we have to practice al-birr, we have to practice the righteousness. And this righteousness it's something which is desired from us. Once we show al-birr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he is al-barr from his side, on his part, means the one who accept all our birr with forgiveness, with mercy, with compassion, with magnanimity. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as al-barr. So we have to practice the birr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will behave as the al-barr. So this way we can say al-birr and al-barr are connected. More we practice the birr, more we can see the bounties of al-barr. More we move towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the good deeds, with the righteousness, and more compassion, more benevolence, more magnanimity, more mercy we can receive on the part of al-barr. So this is how al-birr and al-barr are connected together. And as I said before, that Sayyidina Nawas ibn Sim'an radiyallahu anhu, he says, when I asked about the birr, what is birr, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What is righteousness? He said, al-birru husnul khulq, is a good behavior, that we prove to be good in all our behavior. And our behavior cannot become good unless and until we practice the good. And we practice the birr. Once we practice the birr, then we see the fruits of al-barr. And now we turn towards, so we discuss about the linguistic meaning of al-birr and then technical meaning of al-birr. Now we have to see the concept, the primary and secondary forms of birr. Primary and secondary forms of righteousness, and which we can learn through the words of al-birr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran ayatul birr, which is famously known as ayatul birr, the words of righteousness. And we have to see that if a person wants to see how much righteous he is, if a person wants to see to understand the true concept of righteousness, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of all righteousness. If any one of us wishes to know that how much righteous he or she is, the best way is to reflect upon the words of righteousness. We need to put ourselves upon the words of righteousness. From there we understand, from there we learn that what are the elements of righteousness in me, what's the true concept of righteousness, how far I practice it, how far I am away from it, and what things are supposed to be done on my part to achieve all the righteousness, or to practice these words of righteousness, which is commonly and famously known as Ayatul Bir, which is mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ وَكُتُبِهِ وَرُسُلِهِ وَأَقَامَ الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَى الزَّكَاةَ. It's a long verse. So here the first thing we learn from this words of Bir, or words of righteousness, is a primary concept of righteousness and secondary concept of righteousness. Because sometimes we are not able to differentiate between the actions, we are not able to differentiate between the different concepts. And sometimes when we are not able to stratify the concepts, so we mix them up, we make the mess of the concepts, which results in the misconception and of the basic Islamic terminologies. Say, Quran, in this verse of righteousness, fi ayatil bir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions what is primary concept of righteousness and what is secondary concept of righteousness. And we know that primary is always foundational and important, though secondary is also important, but not as that of the primary. So this is first stratification, first differentiation, that we need what is primary concept of righteousness and what is secondary form of righteousness. In this verse, in this Ayatul Bir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us, makes us to understand the concept of true righteousness, because He is Al-Bar, the source of all righteousness. So we also should have clear concept of this righteousness, that what are the important things which need to be placed first, then what are the secondary concepts of righteousness. We should not change the order. We should not make it the other way around, that we give more importance to the secondary form and less importance to the primary form. So unless and until we don't know the concepts of righteousness, primary concept of righteousness and secondary concept of righteousness, we won't be able to just stratify them. Most of the time, we will be given more importance to the secondary concept and ignoring the primary concepts. So primary concept is a foundation, is a real part of the deen. And secondary is a relative part of the deen, though it's also important, but not as that of the first, not as that of the primary concept of righteousness. So in this verse, if we ask people, and this concept of righteousness varies from person to person, from society to society, from community to community. Every person or every community or every society has its own concept of righteousness. A simple example, within the Muslim community, if we ask a single person, we ask him a question that, how do you define righteousness? What is righteousness according to you? So this depends upon the taste of a person. Somebody may be loving a lot of salah, performing a lot of salah. So he says, performing salah excessively is a righteousness. Or somebody may be having inclination towards observing the fast. So if you ask that type of person, that's what's righteousness, he will say, observing the fast excessively is righteousness. You please put your microphone off. The microphone, please, you put it off. So if you ask another person that how do you define the righteousness, and he loves to spend a lot in charity, so he will say that spending in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best form of righteousness. So the concept varies from person to person. Now at the collective level, at the group community level, if you say, for example, if you ask the Christians what is the best form of righteousness, they will say having the belief that Jesus, the Son of God, is the best form of righteousness, the highest form of righteousness. If we ask the Jews, the answer will be altogether different. They'll say the concept of righteousness is that the Ezra or Uzair alayhi salam is son of God, or they are chosen people. So it means that it varies from person to person, it also varies from community to community. But Quran, this verse of righteousness, has given us a standard, global standard, to judge what righteousness is, what is the primary concept of righteousness and what is the secondary concept of righteousness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ. Righteousness is not that you face towards east or towards west. Actually, Yahud and Nasara, the Jews and the Christians during the Prophet's time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they had this kind of feeling that they are superior people, and they are superior to others. They had this kind of feeling that the best form of righteousness is facing towards the Baitul Maqdis. We know that the first Qibla, the first direction for our prayers, it was Baitul Maqdis. But later on it was changed and Kaaba was declared to be the center of all the Muslims all over the world. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that these Jews and the Christians, they had their own self-concocted concept of righteousness. Their own fabricated concept of righteousness was that they thought facing towards Baitul Maqdis is the best form of all righteousness. It's the best kind of righteousness according to them. And Yahud also had this impression. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala nullifies this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negates this impression. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Laisal bir. It's not righteousness that you face towards east or the west. Walakinnal birra, the true concept of righteousness, the only absolute and acceptable form of righteousness is man amana billah, who believes in oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yahud, the associated partner to Allah. Christians, the associated partner to Allah. Or any other religion who associate partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they think that it is a form of righteousness. Allah nullifies it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negates it. And this verse sets the global standard of righteousness. That the true concept, the absolute concept of righteousness is man amana billah. Whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His oneness, oneness in His essence, oneness in His attributes and names, oneness in His actions. That is all one and alone, all alone in all His actions and attributes. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Waheed wa wahid fi dhatihi wa sifatihi. He's all alone in His names and attributes, in His essence. Man amana billah. So iman billah is the first requirement. It means that any person who is deprived of the iman billah, iman in oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, however good he proves to be, however softly he speaks to the people, however his good behavior is accepted by the people, Quran says it's not righteousness. He is not righteous in primary sense. He is not righteous in its absolute sense. His righteousness is subject to the question mark. Because the first and foremost thing is to accept and acknowledge the reality of this universe, that it has been created by great creator. This universe did not come into being of its own, or there were no many gods and goddesses who put their efforts together to bring this universe into being. Rather, it is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only creator of this universe, the only master of this universe, who brought us into existence, who brought each and everything into existence. So belief in oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the first requirement of primary concept of righteousness. So if a person lacks this thing, however good he tries to be, however good he pretends to be, but in the sight of Sharia, he doesn't qualify to be truly righteous, because he is denying and he is ignoring the favors of the Creator. All the favors He bestowed upon us. We are able to see this beautiful world. Who gave these eyes to us? We are communicating to one another. Who gave this beautiful form of language or beautiful organs which help us to communicate to others. Alam naj'al lahu aynayn wa lisanan wa shafatayn. Did I not create your eyes, is his eyes, wa lisan, and the tongue, wa shafatayn, and the two lips, which he used for the communication? So how come he can forget about it? How can he ignores this? All the blessings which are surrounded. A person is surrounded by the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How come he can ignore them? That who is the source of all these? Who is the source of all these favors, all these blessings, all these bounties I am surrounded by? So a person cannot ignore them. A person cannot overlook them. Imagine a person is getting every month in his account, he gets $50,000 every month, but he doesn't know who sends it. So how unfortunate, how selfishness is on the part of a person. He said, this hardly matters to me who sends this to me. As far as my needs are fulfilled, it's enough. I don't need to know. I need not to know who sends this to me. So it is a selfish person. That he gets every month, he gets $50,000 in his account, and he never tries to find out who this beneficent, magnanimous, compassionate person is. That I do nothing to him, and on his part he is sending every month $50,000 to me. So this is the first thing. His first effort should to know about this compassionate being, about this kind being, who is able or who is instrumental in fulfilling all his needs. Or we can say his survival is only possible, his comfortable survival is only possible because of this wealth he's getting every month from his account. But he never tries to find out who this compassionate being is. Same is case of a person. Even if he tries to be quite good, he poses to be having the good character, good behavior, but he doesn't know the Allah. He doesn't know the Creator. He doesn't know who blessed him with the two eyes, who blessed him with the brain, who blessed him with all the organs of the body, who blessed us with the oxygen. This whole globe is replete with the oxygen, which is important for our survival. Who managed this? Who facilitated this to us? A lamp, one single lamp for the whole globe, which gives light during the day. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets it under the screen so that during the night we may have the rest. So who beautifully arranged all this mechanism? Is it of its own? And of its own it can never happen in such a beautiful coherence.
Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursaleen. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.